Well, hello. You're very welcome to this live recording of Audiovisual Cultures, the podcast that explores different areas of the arts and media. We're doing this live today because my guest has a really exciting show coming up in Edinburgh on the 22nd of August, I believe. And I'm about to take a bit of time off. So we thought we'd just snatch this little window of time where we could and do this video this morning so that then that'll be out there. It'll be available for people to watch ahead of that show. And then the audio edit can come out in a couple of months' time. So thank you so much if you're joining us on YouTube. Please do share this widely so as many people as possible can hear about the fabulous Mariae Smiarowska and her amazing show. So some of you long-haul listeners may remember Mariae and her really interesting interactive performance from the Late Shows episode back in 2019. And I'm really thrilled to welcome Mariae to our 2021 remote format. So just bringing in Mariae to the stream now. Very good morning, Mariae. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Good morning, Paula. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm not too bad. Just still here.
Same here.
So is it okay to ask whereabouts you are? Because you're outside and it looks very interesting up there.
Yeah, so I'm actually on an island called St. Martin's, which is on the Isles of Scilly off the coast of Cornwall. And I came here a couple of months ago just to do a summer job. And yes, and the situation has it such that I don't have indoor Wi-Fi, so I'm outside my workplace. Here it is. Oh, yeah, it's lovely.
Great, awesome. Well, fresh air. That's good. That's good. So Mariae, so I know you're a little bit pressed for time. So, would you be happy to just give us a bit of an overview of some of your work, and then we'll talk about your show?
Sure. So I'm an international performer. I'm Polish American. I met Paula actually in Newcastle when I was living there a few years ago. And primarily I've done theater work rather than film or anything. And I guess you could describe the work I've done as kind of physical, perhaps experimental work. I worked with a company called Theatre Sans Frontières based in Hexham up in Northumberland near Newcastle. So it's also a very kind of visual Gaulier-Lecoq style of theatre. And then I trained with a company called Song of the Goat Theatre in Poland, which is also very kind of physical, ensemble devised kind of theatre work. Yeah, so I guess that's kind of my training, where I come from, kind of a physical, collective, devised sort of process work. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks. Oh, yeah. Great. Well, if it doesn't, it probably will by the time we've teased out a few things, I would say. So you're planning your show. So it's on the 22nd of August, is that right?
So I've actually got 5 performances. There's one.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So I've got one on the 22nd, then the 23rd, and then I've got one on the 27th, the 29th and 30th. And they're all live streamed digitally at 7:30 p.m. UK time.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's great. Yeah. So is there anything you can tell us about it? What might people expect from that, do you think?
So it's a one-woman show. It's something I've written and devised, and it's called Landing. And the theme of it is finding one's place on Earth, which I think is a kind of a universal yet timely theme, if you will. Something that's been percolating inside for many years now. And yeah, so it's, how to describe it? It's a combination of poetry, movement, song, and a bit of visual art as well. And there will be interactive elements as well, seeing as how I want to try and create kind of an intimate, interactive experience as much as possible digitally. And yeah, so it will be via Zoom, and there will be the invitation to kind of to participate. It's also got elements of ritual, which is something I've been incorporating into my work. And yeah, I think that's all I want to say for now.
Okay, that's a really nice teaser. And so, just so people know, there isn't just quite yet a link to book for that, but as soon as Maria has that, I'm going to edit the show notes and have that in there. And but as well as that, your Facebook page is linked already in the show notes for this video. So people head over to Facebook, follow Maria, and I'm sure you'll be updating on your socials. So just while we're on that, do you want to point anybody towards your socials or website?
Yeah, I don't have a website as of yet, but I do have an Instagram account, which is my full name. So it's Mariae Smiarowska, just all together, which I think you've got under there. So yeah, and then I'm on Twitter, but I don't really use it. But you can try and find me on there. It's Mariae Smiarowska1, so it's not WS1, I think is the ending. So yeah, I'll be posting on there as well. And there will actually be a Facebook page for the show itself, which I will link to my page. So yeah, that should all go up slowly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. So it's good to just flag those up, just so that people know where to go. So we can settle in a bit and take a few minutes then to talk about your work more generally and to see what all people may come to expect from this experience. I know I've experienced some of your work live before, haven't on the digital sphere yet, but certainly the live experience is, how do you describe it? It's, I mean, definitely interactive and I think fun and thought-provoking, those sorts of things. And just what you were mentioning earlier, thinking about life on this planet and, you know, getting you to question some things and think some things through. So, I mean, what about you, Maria? Well, is there anything you'd like to flesh out about what you've done before?
Well, I think actually what I've done before, sure, it has kind of fed up to now, but I feel like especially this show is my first original work. Really fully. I've done a one-woman show when I was very young as well, which was an adaptation of a novel. So this is kind of my fully first completely original work, if you will. And yes, kind of those things you said are elements. I do ask questions. I'm not seeking to give answers. I'm asking kind of, universal questions, I suppose. And to get kind of people to think about, in this show specifically, you know, who are you? What is your identity, regardless of your culture or nationality and so on? But also, what does it mean to have a place on this earth? And how do you find that? Is it something that you take for granted, or is it, you know, is it a lifelong quest? How does it look? So it's something that I hope will appeal to kind of many people. I've actually done a few sharings of the work in progress over the last few months and gotten feedback, which has been very interesting, both from people who've traveled and lived abroad and had the experience of being foreign, quote unquote, but also people who've just, you know, come from one place, one small town, for example, and been like, I'm this, you know, and for them, it was also quite interesting to kind of broaden their horizons and go, oh, you know, that applies to me too. And it's interesting to see this other's perspective. So yes, I like asking big questions. I do like to keep it entertaining as well, obviously, but yeah. I think kind of another thing that's kind of always drawn me to theater is kind of the cathartic aspect, which originally, you know, kind of was a part of theater. And so I guess that's why I'm incorporating elements of ritual into this now and kind of going, how can we maybe together collectively create a ritual that can be cleansing or healing in some way, asking these big questions, because they bring up stuff, obviously, from our past as well. And so it's a chance to maybe, collectively do some purification, if you will, but also balance that with lighter moments. It's not all dark, heavy, you know, stuff. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, and I think this show is the beginning of more research and work for the future. But it's kind of taking that question and looking at it now, and then we'll see what other work comes in the future. Does that answer your question, Paula? I don't know. I'm just
it really does. Waffling is what I'm all about.
Lovely. Let me waffle.
Great, because I just, as you're describing all of the things, I am being transported back a couple of years to the late shows and your performance there, and how you were able to get people drawn in to that performance, and then because I'm really interested in that element of contingency of what other people will bring when you draw them in, because you can only plan so much with that sort of thing that's interactive. And getting other people to perform something, even if you're giving them the words, because I remember having to read something out, and so but to sort of take an audience member and make them part of it and make them perform with it. I find that really interesting about your stuff.
Well, I'm going to try and recreate some of that as much as possible digitally. Obviously, it's not the same as live, where you can have kind of an immediate response, if you will, and you can kind of interact with that. Obviously, it's just a little bit different with the Zoom, but I recently did a little work in progress sharing a few months ago as well, where for the first time I had a moment of improvisation while I was performing live with the audience who I could see, at that moment, and that was just so joyful, because it was like, and the feedback I got was like, yeah, we felt we were a part of it as well, and that just I like that. I like creating that space of kind of an intimate community for the duration of that, and we're all a part of creating it together. It's not just, hello, I'm the performer and blah blah. I like to share the experience, I think, and that's kind of something that's special and precious about live performance, be it digital or live. Yeah. So hopefully I'll manage.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be great. I mean, it's been, I imagine, like with so many people in the arts, it's been a tough year and a half. And, how did you find ways? I mean, we've talked about this a little bit, but have you found any other ways of adapting any plans that you had, or how you were sort of maybe confronted with not having the choice but to move online and that sort of thing? How has that been for you?
It's not been easy. It's not been easy, I don't think, for anyone. I was actually in isolation up in Scotland for about 6 months in a house by myself, and luckily I had good internet, and so I was able to do a little bit of performing online, a little bit of teaching, running workshops, things like that. But on the other hand, in a way, I found it in some ways liberating, because I'm going to Edinburgh while I'm on an island in the Atlantic, and that's kind of wild and hard to get my head around sometimes, but also very exciting. And I've got somebody who's producing who will be in Africa during the time of the production, and it's just like, and my director is in Ireland, and it's just kind of also beautiful that I'm someone who's very international, and I've traveled a lot, and I have people, kind of friends all over the world. For me, it's always been about thinking, other time zones and languages, etc. So it feels like the world has kind of stepped up to accepting that as more common and normal and everyday. And that excites me, because it's just kind of really creating that feeling of connectivity globally. And I personally love that. So in a way, it has been liberating, because it's like, wow, I'll be at Edinburgh virtually, but streaming from this island, but it can go worldwide. And it is a conversation that I think is a worldwide conversation, and hopefully worth having. And so it's exciting. It's exciting to have that. But I performed live for the first time the other week here on the island. We had a little open mic at the cafe. And actually, there's a lot of performers on this island, strangely enough. And it was the first time I'd performed live in a year and a half. Last time was in Newcastle, actually. And And it was just so exciting for everyone just to be like, oh, we have this sharing this moment with an audience. So it's been difficult, yeah, challenging, but if we can find a way to have a balance in the future, it's kind of interesting. It does open up a lot of possibilities. I know there's a lot of theater companies have in the States and in other countries, who've been working digitally already for years. So they were kind of ahead of the game a little bit, if you will. But yeah, it's an interesting chance. Yeah, like I'm saying, I think it's about the balance. It's not, I want it all to go online forever. No, I really don't. But how can we find a way to maybe, make a hybrid form of these mediums? It's interesting. It's been a learning curve.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. No, I totally get what you're saying. I mean, like this podcast has become really international because of what's happened as well. So,
Yeah.
You don't get the same, you don't get the same energy necessarily, and it's harder to read body language and all of that sort of thing. And you don't have just some, your contingency becomes, will the internet work today? Is my computer going to burn out?
I know. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I was asking that because I'll be streaming. There's only one kind of island hall with good internet here. And I was like, oh my God, the whole logistics of putting this on here is very interesting. And so I went up and I said, is it good enough, the internet? And the answer I got was, well, Prince Charles had a meeting there, so yes, it'll be fine. Right. Well, if Prince Charles has done it, I can do it too.
You've got royal grade internet on your side, Maria.
Absolutely. Quite amusing. I don't think this experience will happen again, so I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
It's all part of it, really, and I think we're all just so used to it. We're in a way used to any lag or any glitching, and it's part of it now, I think. Yeah.
I think so, yeah. But I'm still fingers crossed.
Of course.
It'll all work,
but
yeah.
If you got 5, then that's 5 really good chances that it's going to go perfectly.
There's more than one. You're right. It's a good way to look at it.
More than one go at it. I'm interested in some of the themes that you've raised as well, because you talked about ritual, and so much of just doing what we're doing right now, having a conversation online. So I'm in Newcastle, you're in the Scilly Islands. We're so far apart, and yet we're beside each other on the screen. And the rituals of joining these kinds of calls now, and so many of us have had to, this is how we've been meeting up with our friends and family and all of that. So I wonder, there's ritual in the sort of capital R sense of it, but then those smaller rituals, those everyday occurrences, those things that become a habit and become normal that weren't normal before, I wonder how much of that do you think will emerge in the show, so that even how the show is getting out there to people is part of a ritual now in itself?
That's an interesting question. I hadn't thought about the smaller rituals actually, but you're right. Yeah, because like I said, I've done a few of the sharings already online, and I had someone facilitating them, some of them, and that was like a whole ritual. You came in, there was the waiting room, bit of chat, bit of music, and then obviously I was doing Q&As afterwards. So there was a whole framework kind of to the thing, and it's funny that you asked that, because I was talking to somebody else in London as well about, I did a little sharing, and she asked me if the whole process was a ritual, and I was kind of like, I hadn't thought of it that way, but actually, yes, it is. Because it's kind of every step along the way of making this show, and along with this year, which came along and just, in a way, kind of made it happen for me, because I had the time and space, luckily, to just go, okay, now my focus is just this work. It has been. It has been a ritual. So yeah, pretty much every element of it is kind of intertwined in that way, which makes me think I need to make up some more stuff about it, kind of how to incorporate that even more, or just maybe just more consciously, not necessarily make everything a ritual that might be a little bit heavy, be like, oh, but to kind of bring that awareness to it. So you've just given me food for thought. I don't really have.
Oh,
Yeah, I like that. Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wonder if it's another way of linking to our past, our ancient past maybe, or more recent past, but the linking these technological advances and the rituals around using them back through time. It's how these things link up, I suppose. I mean, I don't know what you're going to do. I'm just plucking stuff out of the air from what little I do know of what I've seen of your work before. Because I think, wasn't it about it was about going to another planet, the piece that you did before, so you've got that space race thing, just humming away in the background, to that idea of going to another planet, but how you actually get there, and I suppose rituals of travel and things like that. And now we're traveling through our computers, so this technological facilitation of being somewhere else. I don't know. It's just ideas coming out. I hadn't thought about this before we started. It's just coming out. So.
No, great. I love it. I love it. It's very interesting. No, it's fantastic because you're talking about travel, and that the idea of a journey is something that I do feel is very central to my work. So you mentioned we were going to another planet in the late show's performance. Here, I'm taking everyone on a journey through kind of partly my life and then these questions, if you will. So in kind of poetic, non-linear fashion, using song, movement, ritual, and yeah, it's interesting what you're saying. It just sparked like what I'm very interested in, kind of shamanic work as well. So I'm trying to find a way to take ritual, also shamanic ritual perhaps, and blend it, interweave it into theater work. And part of what I'm exploring in the show as well is the land, which is also in the title, landing, which has many meanings. So it's also the land. And this question of how the land speaks to us as beings, to us as human beings. And in a way, it's a dialogue also with the land, kind of going, how do I know I found my place? Does the land somehow communicate it to me? So that is something, if you will, definitely very ancient, and something we've always had that I'm trying to access through ritual and performance. And kind of my own practice has been really about tuning into that over the last years, just kind of like, how do I work with that in a shamanic performative way? How do I find rituals and ways of working artistically within landscape? And then here I am, funnily enough, outside most of the time, which I had not expected at all. I was like, I'm going to be in a black box theater somewhere, or even that living room where I was up in Scotland, but no, instead I find myself mostly outside. So it's interesting that has arisen in a way. And so it's interesting that I'm really trying to work with the elements, the land, the sky, the sea, the ocean, which I have here, the wind, the sun, the earth, but I'll be online. So it's what you're talking about. It's how to facilitate, well, this dialogue, like what we're talking about, of the 3D, if you will, kind of, and then the technological. So again, kind of finding that balance and how to, I'm really kind of about I guess the word I want to use is kind of sensuous experience, in the sense that you feel it in your body, you feel it in your skin. And that's what's so beautiful about live theater. That's why I think I've also always been drawn to that rather than film, because you can go, you're breathing the same air, and you're feeling the emotions kind of as they happen with what's happening on stage. And then obviously there's an interactive element. It's even more engaging, and I love that. That's what I've always loved about performance, the kind of tangibility of it in your skin. You feel shivers, you laugh, you hear others laughing, that collective experiencing of emotion, which can also be very cathartic, transformative, if you will, sometimes. So how do I weave that into this medium where things are flat, they're not 3D? How do I get you to feel, all these emotions, but to see, to gauge that you're feeling them, you're just not watching a movie happening, but you're there live and you're part of it as well. And I want to somehow recreate that and then bring this sensuous land experience into the digital realm. Sometimes I'm talking about it going, that's absolutely impossible. What are you doing? And then sometimes I'm like, no, but that's the whole challenge and beauty of it is because I've had feedback. People are like, oh my gosh, I was transported. I was no longer in my living room. I was, there with you. And I was like, oh yes, it can work. And yeah, I guess that's what I'm striving for, is how to reconnect to our bodies, to our, this material, in that kind of ancient way, through this medium that we have nowadays, and through the situation that has caused this medium to be so everyday. Yeah. So that's kind of my long attempt at some sort of answer, but I think that's what I'm looking for. That's what really excites me, is just kind of having that human and more than human experience together, in a space, whatever the space is.
It's really interesting watching you talk. I think it's being on screen so much, we're having to rely more on our facial expressions and our hand gestures to do the visual heavy lifting of communication. So it's interesting watching you working through ideas with your hands, the way we do this and describing stuff like this. So I think that, while we're cut off, we're sort of from the chest down, we're cut off. Yep. But we've still got our faces and our hands and where our shoulders are, that sort of stuff, so I think that maybe that's what it is. It's transferring the performance from the parts of the body that we can't see, channeling it somehow into the gestures in the smaller areas and more concentrated areas. So that just came to mind as you were talking about that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know I talk a lot with my hands anyway.
I do too.
Yeah. But you're right. It does help to kind of concentrate it on the little screen. Ooh, yeah. You're giving me lots of ideas. I love it. Thank you.
I think that's how it's transferring, is that because it's funny, a recording I did recently with somebody, we were talking about voice acting. So you can't see that, but the performers they're acting stuff out with their bodies, and that comes through in their voice. So I'm wondering if that's an element that helps it come across as well, is the connection through the voice. And then if it's interactive and other people are able to join in and feel that they can start to move bodily, and maybe that transfers through their voice as well. Something
it does. Absolutely. Yeah, it does. I mean, it just reminds me of one of the first things, like a job I had as a teenager, in the States, and we were taught to smile over the phone and kind of, because it comes through. I remember like learning that when I was, 14, 15. And it's true, you do feel it. And so it's this whole concept of embodiment, which I'm talking about, which is so important, is it does transfer. And even though, like, I think a year ago we would have been like, I think people are more used to it now, like dancing together online, for example, you can still kind of have the impression of, either be it for like a party, a celebration, or something more organized, a dance class, or a I don't know if you know five rhythms dancing. Have you heard of that?
No,
Like
I don't.
it's like a movement practice where you go through what's known as a wave, and you go through five kind of different rhythms that, you know, it's usually facilitated by someone. Anyway, briefly, yeah. And so it's like a movement practice, and I've been doing some of those online as well, and they work. You initially think, oh, you know, I'm dancing in front of my screen, this is ridiculous. But I've done it with hundreds of people, like all over the world, and you still get that feeling. It's like we're not in the same room together, but we're in the same Zoom room, and you've got the facilitator, and you can connect to other people if you want. You can also hide yourself. So there's also that freedom, which is nice. Not everybody was like, oh, watch me. Not everybody wants that. But you can get the feeling of like, there are other people on the planet right now dancing with me, and we're all moving our bodies and listening to the same music and having our own experience, but like somehow we're connected. You know, it's the energy, really. It's about the energetic connection. And that's the interesting and strange thing, because it's just like, it's obviously a lot more tangible when you're in a physical space together.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also experience it through this. And it's magical, I do think, in a way. I really do. Because if you step out and switch off for a few days and you think about it, it's like, this is wild. You're in Newcastle, I'm on Scilly, and we're able to do this, and I'm going to be doing a show, and people will be able to see it from all the, like, it's crazy. It is magical, and you can feel it, and that's the energy. And I talk about energy because I'm also a Reiki practitioner, so I've been working a lot with energy this past year, and shamanic work is also energetic work, and that's part of it, I guess. It's just that sharing of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's making me smile as you talk about that, because I think back in the autumn or something, or no, a few months ago, my sense of time is out of whack.
Yeah,
April was the autumn. Back in April, I think it was, there was a feminist film festival in Belfast called Wanda, and I was able to go to that festival because it was all online, and they had a big rap party, and we did what you said, we had a Zoom disco. And it was the best crack, honestly. And you think, I'm on my own, I'm in the front room. It's like a silent disco by myself, but I'm with loads of my friends that I can't see. So, and it was just class, you know, and it was just really cheesy music. And, you know, it was just the best fun, you know, and it was an Irish DJ who's living in England. And I was like, oh, I'm in England too. We're in totally different parts, but we've got this connection as Irish people in England.
Lovely.
You know, so yeah, it was just as you were saying, it was just so much fun. Didn't feel isolated, didn't feel lonely, was buzzing going to bed that night and for days afterwards. You know, it was just so much fun, because I think in a way, when people can't see your body, you don't have so many inhibitions, because nobody can see it. And as you say, you can join in, but you don't have to be on screen. Loads of us were doing really silly things, like had little toys, and I had a little toy holding up and making it dance to the camera, and people were wearing, you know, big, massive masks and stuff. And you know, there's an artist over in Belfast. He was wearing a big Charlie Brown, this massive mask over his head, and he was dancing around like that for ages. You know, so it's stuff like that. So yeah, you get that connection, and you're all performing a kind of ritual that you used to do in a room together and get sweaty and gross and horrible, and now you can do it, don't have to smell anyone.
Exactly. That's one of the pluses. I have thought about that, going, I don't like that smell necessarily. But yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you had that experience, so you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it works, right? You still feel it, and like you're saying, it energizes you, it gives you something, and and you feel connected. And I think it's very, very important kind of in these times to just remember we are connected. And, you know, because for in terms of mental health and all that, it's been very, very challenging. And I think that's another thing. Like, that's why I think I've always been drawn to this kind of idea of creating a community, but like now even more so. I just feel it's vitally important. And so I want to be able to create that for a moment. And yeah, I don't know, maybe it's too big to say, but like give some hope, you know, whatever, just and just to see where, yeah, we are all human and we have similar questions and feelings, etc. And to share that and let that up and out and create the space for that to happen. I think it's just super important, for me too, obviously. You know, I do it because also I need it. And if I can share that with others and create, you know, intimate moments of connection that are human and hopefully, you know, beneficial in some way, whether it just be entertainment, just sharing a fun moment together, or more thought-provoking or cathartic, you know, whatever, on whatever level. I think it's important. Yeah.
I think those moments of encounter as well, because you don't necessarily know who's going to turn up or how many people are going to turn up, and so those contingencies again, but moments of connection through encounter. And even if there's no touch, but you can, as you say, you can have those other sensory experiences through the oral delivery of things. Because I think as well, there's probably a connection with oral histories, and whereas they would have been passed down and been more ethereal, everything can be, it can still be ethereal, but it can also be recorded and archived away. You know, like this is going to be on the internet for who knows how long, for example. But with, say, what you're doing, I don't know if you'll record them or not, but I guess not necessarily. They will be live and they'll be in their own time. I don't know what you'll do with that, but
I don't know yet, but yeah.
Yeah, just that idea that it's, you're in that moment, you're in that presentness with people, and you're trying to be in the now, and just be together at that time, you know. And I suppose it's a matter of focus, because it's something that I guess a lot of us have been confronted with as well, is how many other things are going on our screens, and can we be present with our screen on a Zoom call or something like this? You know, I suppose that's just more questions that are coming to mind about what could happen in the show, maybe. So
It's exactly that. It's kind of, you know, theater in its essence is something that is ephemeral. It's there for that present moment. You share it live. You're in an audience. You know, it just historically and usually does. There's no filming. It's just there and what you experience in that time. And I think that's what's beautiful about it, because you have a lot of on-demand shows that have been theater shows that have been filmed. You can just click and buy them. And I had that option, and I was like, absolutely not, because the whole point is to have what you're talking about, is to have that live experience as much as possible, even though it's digital. And actually, I did try this little experiment where I had just for, you know, various reasons, I couldn't perform the whole thing live. I didn't have someone to help me technically, so I did part of my sharing live, and then I pressed play, because then I did the rest from another previous sharing that I had recorded. And the difference in people's response to it was so interesting. I was like, there is, you know, it actually just answered that question. It was a tangible difference. People were like, when I was there watching it and it was live and interactive, and, you know, we were there with you, I was really taken, right? And then they went, and then it changed, and it was just kind of like watching something, and I was like, oh my gosh. So that just confirmed, like, it's got to be live for me, because of the nature of it, and what we're talking about, just that feeling of you are engaged in that moment bodily. And there's that little risk because it's interactive. There's always a little, you know, like, oh God, will I be chosen, you know, to come up on stage, that kind of thing in shows, you know, in interactive shows. So I'm making it a safe space. Obviously, if someone doesn't want to, I'm never going to pressure and, you know, whatever. But there is that invitation, and obviously like a little frisson, a little woo, and that's great, because it's just like, I don't want people to just be sitting there watching, you know, zoning out, going, you know, it's like, well, no, this is live, this is interactive, this is. I'm asking for a sort of engagement. I don't want it to be just a passive, you're consuming some more entertainment. It's a little bit more than that, hopefully.
Yeah, you want to encourage active participation, not just passive viewing of something and consumption, but actually production from people in helping make the art, you know.
Yeah, exactly, because it's, like I said, it's a collaborative thing. It's not just me, and it feeds the work, and it feeds the questions, and like I said, it's a dialogue, because then we create it together, and it's like you were a part of that dialogue and creation as well. And like what you saw at the late shows, it's like it was also like what everyone brought, which was surprising at times. It was like, oh, and that's the whole beauty of it. It's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that answer or that kind of response, and it's lovely, because then it's like, yeah, so that was your part, you know, that was what you created, what you brought. And I want the same in this experience, just because obviously it'll help grow it, and it'll be different every time. It's also lovely. And I like that. I like that element of surprise. This is interesting, because this is something I feared all my performative life. It was like, I want everything, you know, I want control, because it's already so much going on and so much risk involved. I really liked things to be, like I know what I'm doing from beginning to end, and now I'm like, no, the beauty is in that improvisation, in the not knowing, the kind of risky element of you know, of bringing someone who I don't know in completely, you know, from an audience member, or just allowing that space for the unknown to happen on stage and performance. And I love that, because that takes more trust. It's harder in a way, but it's so freeing and just so beautiful. And obviously, yeah, it can flop, but that's okay. Like, I don't know. I think it's just something that's like, I'm not seeking perfection anymore. I'm seeking, I don't want it polished and perfect. I want it to be alive. I want it to be alive and raw-ish, not completely, but, you know, to have that meat, that essence, that, I don't know how to name it exactly, but am I getting across what I mean? Yeah.
I think so. Yes, I think so. Yeah, you know, you can drive yourself mad getting everything perfect, and then but then might people be more passive, because there's nothing making them think about it. There's nothing taking them out of themselves for a moment, you know. So maybe actually I find anyway, the art is in the imperfection, the art is in the contingency, you know. It's whatever happens, you know, and that I think is much more interesting than something being this polished, perfect object, because you can't see the workmanship in it. You can't see where people have tried and maybe it hasn't gone the way they might have wanted or imagined, but something happened and it's got people thinking about something, you know. So there's definitely something in that, I would say. And, you know, and it's just so, I think it's really brave. You performers make themselves really vulnerable. I think any live performance, even if it is super polished, or you never know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
But you know, but when something like this, where it isn't planned out to the absolute letter, you don't know what's going to happen, and you know, so I think it's incredibly brave when performers do that, and they lay themselves quite bare, actually. But I think there's that invitation then to the audience members to do the same. You can be part of this too, and we can keep each other safe, you know. So that's maybe where that sense of community comes from.
Exactly. No, it's very much what you said. It just made me think of that Leonard Cohen quote. There's a crack in everything. That's where the light gets in. It's just that, or the Japanese art of, pasting the what do you know what it's called? The pasting the gold when like a vase breaks and pasting it with
Oh,
gold, filling it in and regluing it with gold. I don't remember what that art is called, but it's just the beauty of keeping the cracks and even elevating them with gold to make them stand out. It's like your battle scars, wearing them with pride. But it's exactly that. It's exactly what I want to create in this show, and I think in all my work really is that intimate, vulnerable space that we're so afraid of, but is so human and so vitally important. It's everywhere in the world, and now I think in a way even more is just to combat this fear that is out there. Is just like, I know this is going to sound a little bit cheesy, but it's not. It's really opening up to that love and vulnerability that we all need and want to experience and share. And I'm talking about unconditional, big, capital L love, um, and 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 having the space, the safe space to do that, and like you're saying, to take care of each other in that space. And I love that. And have you heard of the sociologist Brene Brown?
I'm not too sure.
Brene Brown is an American. She's a Texan sociologist who's written quite a few books, and kind of one of her books has been kind of accompanying me
Oh,
along
great.
as well. It's called Braving the Wilderness. It's kind of the
Okay.
courage to speak alone, or something is the subtitle. And yeah, and she's fantastic. And she also has this beautiful TED talk about vulnerability, which if anyone's interested, they're welcome to check out. And talks about the power of vulnerability, which is something we don't think about.
Yeah.
Think about, oh, that's weak. Yeah, we got to be strong. We got to protect ourselves. And it's actually like, well, in a way, it's more resilient, even though it sounds counterintuitive. But to be vulnerable and to open and to share yourself more, more authentically, because that's kind of where the connection happens. And actually, that subtle connection is very powerful. And I think that's what's healing. And that's like the little gold in the cracks of the broken vase. It's beautiful, and that's what we need. We all need. And yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm hoping um, to foster, to create a space to allow that to happen in a way, by taking those risks myself, like you said. So
Yeah.
inviting others to feel safe to do that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think if anybody is watching this and they're a bit on the fence about giving that a go, I can assure you, because I have participated in workshops and performances that Maria has been leading in the past, and I felt in very safe hands. I am super uber introverted, and I felt quite comfortable actually to join in and muck in and make an arse out of myself. So I felt very, very safe and comfortable and joyful actually to do that with Maria. So you'll be in very safe hands if you please give this a go.
Oh, thank you, Paula. That's lovely to hear. I'm really glad. Lovely. Cool. Thank you.
Great. Is there anything else that you think you'd like to say, to point out to people, or anything we haven't covered that we haven't talked about?
No, I think we've covered quite a bit, actually. Yeah, no, just if people are interested, I will get production going and get links up for tickets and things like that ASAP. And yeah, and just invite people to come and have maybe a different experience than what they're used to. Hopefully, a little. Yeah, so come check it out, take a risk, try something, different.
Brilliant. Well, yes, just keep checking back to the show notes for this video. And I think on both our social channels, we'll get those links shared when they're available as well. Mariae Smiarowska, thank you so much for this morning. It's been great to catch up with you, apart from anything else. And I'm really excited about this show, and I hope it goes really, really well for you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Paula. It's been lovely seeing you again.
Awesome.
Great.
Thanks so much.
All right. Take care.
You too. All
Bye.
right. Bye. Okay, folks. So yes, that's we're just wrapping up then this live broadcast, and this episode will probably come out in, I think, October 2021 on the audio only. But this video will be available, so please, as I say, watch it, share it. Do check out Maria's performance and her other work. Her Facebook is linked down below. So thanks everyone, and take care. See you next time.